Hello, NOTCAST watchers. Firstly, don't forget to vote for Cthulhu 2024, the greater of two evils. Secondly, this is number 404 of the NOTCAST, which I started off about 4 years ago when we were deep inside COVID. And for those of us with long memories, it seems so long ago now. And at the same point, like yesterday, that we were, all isolating in our homes, and there was a conversation. And basically, I was told I was boring and I needed to start and do a YouTube to talk to my imaginary internet friends about things that interested me, because no, certainly weren't interested in my opinions about whether Reeves Gabrels was David Bowie's best guitarist. Yes, he was, by the way. Still believe that. Never going to change my mind. And on number 404, maybe I should just do Not Cast, Not Found, actually. That would be funny, but very, very niche. Instead, I'm going to revisit a film that I talked about way back, probably about number 87 or something, where I talked about the films of Sir David of Lynch and my favourites and rankings and things like that. I'm going to revisit a film of his that I think is astonishingly good, but has been very, very underserved in all of its officially released formats. And I'm also going to give you a review of the recently released German 6-disc Blu-ray box set of Dune, Der Wüstenplanet, which I believe stands for the Sand Planet. This is an amazing box set, one of the very best, in fact, probably the best singular film-related box set that I have for a single movie. But if you want to know about that, probably skip about 15 minutes in, because I'm going to waffle on about the other stuff that goes with it. First and foremost, I love this movie. I love Dune. I love Dune in all its forms. The theatrical cut, the TV version, the soundtrack by Toto, who, by the way, also played instruments on Michael Jackson's Thriller, which is particularly weird. And I've gone deep into the lore about the film, the making of the film, and yes, even the well-known novelisation by Frank Herbert. And I will be picking out bits from these two books as I talk about the film as I go on as well. I think first and foremost, there is no one officially released version of Dune that has been satisfactory to me for a very, very long time, until probably about 3 years ago. I wasn't really aware of a definitive cut of Dune, which I actually liked and enjoyed. The theatrical version, here's the 2005 double disc edition on DVD, was, in my opinion, frustratingly incomplete. It was like watching 75% of a really good film that, because it was missing the remaining 25%, actually became about 50% good. And I am really, really interested in alternate cuts of movies. I'm really interested in fan edits. I'm really interested in what could have been. So, for example, one of my other favourite films is also a pile of shit. It's Caligula with Malcolm McDowell, a film that, if you don't know very much about it, all I have to tell you is when he sticks the commentary on one of on one of the editions, the first words out of Malcolm McDowell's mouth on the commentary are "Heaven help us," and he's exactly right. Caligula was recently issued in an ultimate cut, which featured all previously unseen takes and angles, and whilst I haven't seen it yet, it's had a very limited theatrical run, and I don't think it's come to my part of the country yet. I will be buying that when that comes out and reviewing it fully, because that's another film that, like Dune, is available in a multitude of cuts, and some are fascinating and some are not. So Dune is the first, and so far to date only, David Lynch film that doesn't come in a director approved final cut. Final cut is really, really important, because it means that you get to see the director's vision the way that it was meant to be made. You get to see the film the way it was meant to be seen, and not the film the way the marketers and money men think that you should see a film. So, for example, there are 3 cuts of Terry Gilliam's Brazil. One of them is really good. One of them is absolutely atrocious. So bad, in fact, that when I watched the commentary on the Criterion edition, my then girlfriend, who was a cinephile and also a markophile, which I was quite pleased about actually, was like, why are they watching this? They clearly hate it. And then I had to go through the fact that the studio had taken the final cut away from Terry Gilliam. If you want to investigate that, look at the Love Conquers All edition of 1984's Brazil, which is on a triple disc Criterion edition that's now long out of print. Criterion, the watchword for quality DVD releases, alongside Turbine Koch, Arrow, when they had better quality control, and some other ones as well. There was an Arrow edition of Dune that was released in 2021 that is deeply unsatisfactory for reasons that I will get to and explain when I get to talking about the super fancy pants 6-disc version of Dune, which I just showed you the mega box for. The film Dune has had a very, very complicated life. For many years, the first 4 or 5 years, the only version of Dune that you could see was the 137-minute theatrical edition, which I think I first saw on 4.3 VHS rented from Blake's in Cottridge in that there Birmingham in about 1985. And I was like, this film is very, very good. And I memorized every line from it, but I knew it was incomplete. It felt like you were reading a book and half of the pages had dropped out, which, given what happens in Dune Messiah, is probably a good idea if half the pages dropped out of that. But it was a fascinating space epic that you could really, once I saw it, and I thought, this is both a dense, rich world, a film that perhaps in the hands of Ridley Scott or perhaps in the hands of David Lynch with Final Cut would have been a masterpiece. And certainly it's a fascinating science fiction movie. I love it to bits. Terrible David Lynch movie, really good science fiction film, but not in the theatrical cut. Okay, don't go for that. This apparently won the Award of Excellence for Best DVD Extras in 2005, which I'm calling bullshit on, because they're not very good. There's a new documentary, apparently, on the making of Dune, 37 minutes, called Impressions of Dune. There is Destination Dune, a rare promotional film with on-set interviews that's a whole 6 or 7 minutes long, and an interview with Frank Herbert that is probably 1 minute 40 seconds long. It's not very good, the theatrical cut of Dune. The theatrical cut of Dune is only the second worst cut of the film that's been released, because on the TV edition of the movie that was released in 1988, broadcast on television, was so bad that David Lynch had his name taken off the film and replaced by the classic directed by Alan Smithee. Alan Smithee is a name that's used by the Guild of Directors, although it's now been retired after the release of an Alan Smithee film, where if there is a version of the film that's been disowned by the director, it was credited to Alan Smithee, whose filmography is quite fascinating, but a little strange. So if you want the hallmark of a bad movie, go and see an Alan Smithee film. That said, the TV version of Dune is terrible. This is the French version of Dune. When I went to Paris in 2009, I specifically went into a bookshop and sought this out. This is the 3-disc version that features the theatrical cut, the TV version, which was available in, I think, 4.3 for the with 35 minutes of extra footage in. Was presented in a restored fashion. There was a 2000, so there was an early or late 90s theatrical version of Dune. This is not it. In the year 2000, there was an extended edition that was released that was just a very blunt VHS dupe onto DVD in 4.3 of the 3-hour television cut. This has been remastered, but it's still the TV cut, and the TV cut is still the worst version of the film that's ever been released or seen. And the reason for that is that it repeats shots, it flips shots, it adds dialogue, bad overdubs, unfinished special effects. It has a terrible 10-minute animated sequence narrated by what sounds like Vlad the Impaler, giving you a special report from the Landsrat about something or other, and the men machines, and all that rubbish. And it doesn't really make sense. There's glimpses of what could have been, things that are outside the border of the film, and you kind of go, nearly there, so close. But again, it was made without David Lynch's input or authorization, and it is not very good. It is extremely linear and over-explains things many, many times, which means that it's dumbed down. Even though it has lots of really great ideas in it, what you end up seeing is an unsatisfactory version of the film. The French 3 DVD version for many, many years was absolutely the definitive edition to track down. The 3rd disc features interviews, making ofs, photo galleries, promotional stuff, deleted scenes. Some of them are only in French. A little bit frustrating, but as somebody that loves this film, I still do love this film. It's absolutely, this was for many years the definitive DVD edition of Dune, and you can only buy it in France. Now, the reason that you could only buy it in France, the reason why this was only released in the UK, and the reason why this mega super duper box set was only released in Germany was because of home video rights. Dino De Laurentiis, a strange man and, to put bluntly, an eccentric producer, had an interesting idea around the home releases of Dune, which is if he sold the different rights to different companies in each different country, each with unique contracts that gave them different rights for home releases, he could raise more money rather than doing a global deal. Clever lad. Very good idea. But ultimately what that means is this German edition of Dune can only be released in Germany. It can't be released anywhere else in the world due to the licensing rights that are available. And therefore there aren't that many copies of this available. If you're looking for a copy of this, and by the way, I'm not getting a cut from Amazon on this, do look up. If you're in the UK, look at amazon.co.uk, specifically look for the 6-disc version with De Wunstplanet on. Use the name of the manufacturer, who is, and let me quickly check, I think this is Koch, but I could be wrong. And have a look for that and see if you can find it. This one cost me a staggering £73, postage included, to the UK, which is the most I've ever paid for a single movie, even though it is cheaper than the original 1980 retail release of Abba the Movie and Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1982. This is the definitive version of the film, the definitive release. It is everything you ever wanted. It differs from the Arrow edition in two ways. The Arrow edition, which was announced in 2021, would have been an instant purchase for me until such time as they took off a documentary called The Sleeper Must Awaken because it wasn't finished. And rather than push back the release of it for 3 weeks, they just went, fuck it, we're just going ahead anyway. And that meant that I didn't buy the Arrow edition. Full stop. Because I'm not going to buy a castrated version of any release at all. Because of company greed. If you've promised and sold it on the grounds of how containing a major piece of the package, and then you take a major piece of the package out, no sale, guys. Sorry. I'm a completist in much the same way as bands do, multiple versions of albums with multiple track listings. I think the Smashing Pumpkins did an album called Zeitgeist, which featured a different bonus track for each different brand or superstore that you bought it from. I think if you bought it from Walmart, it had one track. If you bought it from Best Buy, it had another one, for example. And that ended up meaning that I didn't buy any of them, because either you sell me the whole thing or I buy no thing. Okay, because I'm not prepared to take a castrated version of a product unless it's ridiculously cheap in a charity shop many years later, which, by the way, of course, I have done. But all this format slicing, so for example, Star Trek Into Darkness had an exciting home video release where there was 40 minutes of material that was available from Best Buy, another 40 minutes of bonus material that you could only get through a download. I was just like, I'm not interested, guys. I'm not interested. Okay, you either do the mega version or you don't. And if you don't do a mega version with everything on, I'm not going to hunt down and peck and buy multiple different copies of things. I'm just going to wait until they get into the secondary market cheaper. This then was the version of Dune to get. Originally released in 2021 as a 7-disc set in a slightly bigger package. The slightly bigger package sold for a bit more money, now sells for an enormous amount of money. And the contents of this and the contents of the 7-disc mega package are identical apart from 2 items. The first one it's missing is the soundtrack CD to Dune, which is included in the 7-disc set. Luckily, you can pick up the original CD of the Dune soundtrack for about £3.99 on Amazon or £3 on Discogs, and that means you don't have to spend an extra €100 to get it inside the Dune box set. So there you go. I've just saved you €100, write out a check and send it to me. The second thing that's in the 7-disc set that you don't get in this is some kind of weird acrylic print of a Dune poster, which, having shown you one in the Nirvana issue episode earlier on this week, is not all that in a bag of chips and not worth spending extra money for. Therefore, if you're the kind of guy like me that's interested in documentaries, extras, deleted scenes, alternate cuts of movies, this is the big enchilada. This is the big Johnny Bollocks. This is the one that you want to get, except no other versions of Dune. Before we go into the contents of this, I will tell you it has a 4K disc that is region free. It has all the other discs are apparently region B locked, so you have to have a region B compatible Blu-ray player, otherwise these will not pay for you. That said, the greatest thing that's on this set is also on YouTube, but I've got to own the thing. I've got to own the physical thing. That's how I am, especially for a film as important as this to me. So let's go inside the box set and let's see what's there. First and foremost, this thing is a monster. Look at how big that is. That is even bigger than my ego. It's enormous. You might think, oh, it's just 6 discs. No, this thing is like about, I don't know, 9 inches by 11 inches. It's a beastie, and it's about, oh god, 3 inches deep. It really is a monster. So yeah, before you go into that, bear in mind this is going to take up significant real estate on your shelves. Perhaps not as big as the Matrix set, which had 10 discs all wrapped around itself in a tower and a bullshit head of Keanu Reeves, which you can probably get for £3.99 on CEX. But there you are. So you lift the lid off, and this is a heavy beastie, by the way, 3.4 kilograms according to what I saw in the product description. And new cover art there, Dune, the Desert Planet. So let's go look at the tat before we get into the discs. Okay, so the first thing that you've got there is a reprint of the Marvel comic adaptation, which this is in German, which is a shame. But aside from the fact that it's in German, it is magnificent. And I'm a bit of a comic book geek as well. So, it's great to have it. I absolutely love buying, by the way, the old annuals that they used to sell, like Raiders of the Lost Ark, the annual, and so on, which was really actually hardback compendiums of the comic book adaptations of the books. And in the Raiders of the Lost Ark annual and adaptation, one of the characters, Tot, actually dies halfway through the film, but in the actual film lives to the end. So there you go. So there you are. This is Dune, the Desert Planet, in German. If you can read German, fantastic. If you can't, just sit here and look at the pretty colours, to quote one of Bristol's best bands. The second thing that we have in this box set, apart from actually a tiny fraction of a crisp, is a poster, 2 posters. So let's open these up. These are folded. If you want to get a cheap Dune poster, go for the 99p or £1.50 TV Theatrical Cut DVD from 2000, which has this poster in it, significantly smaller. This you can you can frame this. It looks lovely, by the way, but of course it is folded, which is the curse of all poster lovers. But this is one of the posters. This is also in the 7-disc set, which I don't have and can't afford. But I know Peter has. Hi there, Peter. You're probably not watching this. And also hi to Michael Weeks, who is probably watching this and wishing he had a Region B Blu-ray player. This is the second poster. This is the new cover art in German for the Desert Planet there. And again, that replicates what's on the front of this massive, mega, super duper box set. Again, it's just paper. It's just extra stuff. I would have bought it without this, but it's in there, and frankly, I'm going to take it. This is the photo booklet, which features an interview with Ron Miller. Ron Miller is the production designer. The interview with Ron Miller, I'm afraid to say, is unsurprisingly in German. I'm beginning to think the whole world should speak one language, and because I am lazy, that language should be British. This features things like photographs of extras, test designs, behind the scenes footage, photographs of unused headwear, really interesting production stuff, continuity photographs. It's the ideal definition of a coffee table book for Dune. And of course, if you haven't seen Dune, what the hell are you doing watching this? Because we're deep in spoilers now, by the way. And then there's concept art there. Very little from Jodorowsky's Dune, but plenty from the making of. And obviously an interview in German. And then David Lynch in one of his rare happier moments during the making of this film. So let's go into the discs and see what's in here. We have 6 discs. They are housed inside this cardboard box. Now you will see there that I've taped the cardboard box together on the grounds that the weight of the discs actually causes that to sag otherwise, and it really needs to either be stored flat or vertical. But if vertical, then you do need to tape the bottom line because gravity works And on the back, it'll give you a breakdown for what's in here. So let's go through what's in each of the 6 discs, because let's face it, that's what you're buying it for. You're not buying it for the stuff. So we have a 4K ultra high def of the theatrical cut there, and we have a remastered Blu-ray downscale from the 4K scan of the theatrical cut. Again, as I've said, the theatrical cut is, in my opinion, the second best version of the film. These default to German, but you can very quickly move over to the English audio track and play it in the UK. The second set of discs, and this is a little bit more interesting, 2 bonus DVDs, or sorry, 2 bonus Blu-rays of extra material. So this features the archive materials, so that's ported over from previous releases. Those previous releases include everything, with very limited exceptions, that are on all the previous home video releases. That would be Destination Dune, which was a 6-minute making of from 1984, Impressions of Dune, which is on the 2005 2-disc set, the interviews with Raffaella De Laurentiis, a designing Dune featurette from the 2005 DVD, models and miniatures, Dune effects, Dune wardrobe design, Sean Young's Super 8 footage shot with a Super 8 camera, that's 6 minutes, which is new, an interview with Paul Smith, which is 13 minutes, an interview with the production coordinator, Golda Offenheim, which I think is in German, but is subtitled, so you can make sense of it. This version, the French version, has some French-only interviews, but since I don't speak French, I'm not missing very much there. So those are pretty much the only extras that have previously been released that aren't on this set. Disc 3, the new bonus features, that's the puppy where you get interested in. That has The Sleeper Must Awaken, the making of Dune, which was for bullshit reasons taken off the Arrow version of the movie so they could make a release date as opposed to a quality product. The Sleeper Must Awaken is on YouTube. It's a fabulous making of documentary. It's very interesting, although it doesn't feature any of David Lynch in, because when David Lynch lost final cut of the movie, he effectively disowned his connection with Dune. This disc also contains, by the way, and I'm going to quickly go through it, merchandising, the film music, an interview with Giannato De Rossi, and other stuff. So that's all the stuff that's on the Arrow edition. What the Arrow edition does have, that this doesn't have, is 2 commentaries on the theatrical version of Dune. So that's the only stuff you get on the Arrow edition that isn't on this. Okay, so if you're thinking, oh, I've got to get the Arrow edition as well, only get it if you're really madly into commentaries. Even I don't watch all the commentaries. I mean, obviously, I could do a whole thing about my favourite DVD commentaries. And in fact, I'll quickly do that now, because my favourite DVD commentaries are Arnold Schwarzenegger in Conan the Barbarian, primarily because he narrates exactly what's happening on the screen, and then goes, "Look at me, I'm punching the camera, look at it go down, boy." And then there's the irreverent police commentary, or technical experts commentary on Hot Fuzz, which is fantastic. Basically, irreverent commentaries are where my head is at. The 5th and 6th discs of the movie are presented here on the 3rd one of these, and these contain 2 versions of the movie. So this is the extended TV version, available for the first time in Blu-ray quality 1080dp widescreen. This was released also on the 2021 edition, but this disc, the 6th disc, this is what I bought the set for. Except no substitutes. This is the definitive version of David Lynch's 1984 film Dune. This is called the Spice Diver edit, and it contains, and the 2024 6-disc repack version of it here contains the first high definition release of the Spice Diver edit, because previously the Spice Diver edit was included on the 21 edition, but you had to use upscale footage from the DVD releases of the theatrical edition, the extended cut, which is on here, and also the deleted scenes in VHS quality that were taken from here. The Spice Diver edit that's on the 6th disc of the 2024 edition is not only the definitive version of Dune, it is also the first time a high definition copy of that cut has been released anywhere in the world, and it is the definitive take upon the movie. As I've said before, I'm a huge fan of fan edits, that they allow people to tweak and change a movie and to make it match a different vision. I can do a whole thing about how I spend lots of time watching fan edits of things like The Exorcist and Jaws and Star Wars. Or there's a fantastic fan edit called The War of the Stars by the man behind the mask, who also did a sharksploitation version of Jaws using footage from Orca Killer Whale and an Italian unauthorized disco soundtrack, for example. This version, the Spice Diver edit, is the definitive version of Dune. It features all the footage that's worthwhile that's in the extended version, plus footage from the deleted scenes, and has upscaled them all, done some sound effects, some mixing, changed some of the audio, added the blue eyes into the Fremen, by the way, from the TV edit, which is missing on the TV versions. So the 35 minutes of footage that's in the TV version doesn't have the Fremen with the blue eyes. This version, I think he's put the blue eyes in, and he re-edited the film, so added extra scenes in, added extra lines, stuff from the deleted footage. So if you take the deleted footage, which is about 15 minutes, and you take the extra stuff that's only in the TV cut, that comes to about an extra 50 minutes of Dune, which would bring Dune up to 3 hours 7 minutes. Now there's 8 minutes of that is not on the Spice Diver cut because of repetition or alternate storytelling that breaks the mold. But what we do have is the internal monologues are reduced. The Vlad the Explainer, who does the narration, is reduced. It's turned into interstitial shots, which sound like they feel like they're part of the movie, as opposed to a voice going, "Remember, you're watching a film now. This is me telling you stuff." Taken out the Vlad the Explainer from the TV cut and replaced it with Princess Irulan's "Oh, and I forgot to tell you" kind of footage. Put a new beginning in, or more correctly, the start of the film, the opening scene that always should have been there. Went full kind of chome in the first 3 minutes of the movie. And then also just made the film make sense. This is the version of Dune to watch, the Spice Diver edit, which is on YouTube, and I will post a link to you down there. But the version that's on YouTube is the lower definition copy. This is the definitive version, but good God, it's expensive. It's £73 to own. This should be the version of Dune that everybody knows and hardly anybody does. This is the version of the film that many people saw and should never have left the studio. Okay, pretty unambiguous there, but this is the definitive version of the movie, the Spice Diver edit. And this is the only physical disc release of it anywhere in the world, possibly ever. Can't be sold separately due to licensing issues. So if you want to get, in my opinion, the definitive cut of Dune on disc, you have to pay a lot of money. Or you could just go onto YouTube and pay a considerably smaller amount of money to watch it. That is the 6-disc version of Dune here. So you've got the 2 alternate cuts, the TV and the Spice Diver edit. You've got 2 discs of making ofs. One's almost completely new. The other one is almost all of the archive material from previous releases. You've got a 4K of the theatrical version and standard Blu-ray of the remastered theatrical version there. Boy, am I glad I didn't buy the Arrow version in 2021, because I would have missed out. And then, of course, as is always the case, to justify the price tag, you've got a book you probably wouldn't buy, you've got posters that you probably wouldn't buy, and you've got a German comic book which you probably wouldn't buy. But realistically, for a 6-disc set of such quality, I would love to see this come out in the UK in a smaller box that was, more affordable and more accessible. But thanks to Dino De Laurentiis, you can only buy this version in Germany, which is a shame. So if you haven't seen it, again, I strongly recommend the Spice Diver cut. If you've got to positively own it on disc, this is the most affordable and easiest way to get it, despite the big price tag and the fact that they're only region locked discs to region B. So sorry, chums in America, you'll have to buy another Blu-ray player if you want to watch it. Don't get the Arrow version because it hasn't got the Spice Diver cut on, it hasn't got the Sleeper Must Awaken, which are the 2 big draws for me. Also, whilst I remember, there are 2 really interesting books about the making of Dune, which are here. One is The Making of Dune. This is written by Ed Naha. Ed Naha wrote the novelisation to RoboCop, so, stay out of trouble. And this is actually surprisingly open in the days before They got to the point where every single comment in every single making of, oh, it's brilliant, we all got on fine, it's like a lovely big family. And you go, no, I'm never speaking to him again. So this is perhaps a little bit more honest than some of the other making ofs. That's really interesting. You can have a look on World of Books and see if you can find that. This, however, this is the business. This is the making of Dune. I devoured this over 2 afternoons, sat in my garden with ice lollies listening to New Order in summer 2023. It's over 500 pages. It started off as a magazine article, the oral history of the making of Dune, and suddenly just became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It's absolutely bloody enormous. Fascinating, really interesting. Go really into detail about the fact that the final cut was taken away from David Lynch, and that's why he disowned it. And he was offered the opportunity to recut the film, but he wouldn't do it unless he was paid, and they refused to pay him. And it's like, why would I not be paid to come in and unfuck the thing that you fucked up? Which is one way of putting it, I guess. But again, if you're really interested in the making of Dune, £20.99 in the UK, possibly a bit cheaper now. But again, absolutely essential reading. So in case any of you hadn't worked out, and I guess this is a surprise to some of you, I bloody love this movie. It's fantastic. I think it's just bloody brilliant. And I would deeply, deeply love more people to love it, know it, and to have seen the Spice Diver cut. Before I wrap up, I'm going to be quiet for the next few days because I have visitors, and I'm going to be doing stuff in the so-called real world, which will be painful, but I will give it a shot and see how it works. I think is the best way of describing it. So, in the meantime, take care of yourselves and each other. Stay beautiful, beautiful ones. And I will see you next week. Okay, I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to eat ice cream. Yeah, that's more information than you were expecting. The only other thing I haven't mentioned is the ending of the Spice Diver cut of Dune. It is different to every other version of the film, and it is better. And sometimes you need to end the film a couple of minutes before it actually ends. In much the same way as someone once said to Jarvis, what is the best time to leave a party? He said, a couple of minutes before you realise you should have left a couple of minutes ago. That's exactly the same thing with the Spice Diver edit. Fear is the mind killer, the sleeper must awaken, and I must switch this off. So, see you soon. Bye.